Okay, welcome to the introduction of digital prospecting. This is going to be a short course. Hopefully, each episode or each video should only be, anywhere between 2 to 10 minutes long. It's really designed just to try and fast track your prospecting online or your skills online to help you start prospecting smarter, faster, more efficiently, more effectively. Now, this is not going to replace your traditional ways of prospecting. Let's be very clear on that to begin with. It will not replace your traditional prospecting. You still to continue to do your phone canvassing and your regular door knocks and everything else you're doing, your regular pipeline management will remain exactly the same. This short course is very simply designed to, as I said, make your prospecting more efficient, more effective, and add to what you're already doing. What I try and use the analogy I try and use when it comes to digital prospecting is I want you to really look at this a little bit like a digital PA or a virtual PA. A PA or an associate that's sole responsibility is just to prospect for you 24/7. So look at this the same way as you would any other associate. If you had an associate in your team, primarily their job is to help you prospect, right? But generally speaking, they're doing it through traditional means. So they're not really using digital and they don't really have the savviness or the know-how to do it effectively online anyway. When you master digital prospecting, it adds another layer to your business that you haven't previously had. Okay. As I said, it really acts as a second you. So imagine having your skills, your prospecting ability, your closing ability into a digital ecosystem. That's what I want to teach you today. So there's going to be a few key pillars we're going to talk about. Primarily, of course, one will be social media. Okay. Using automation with social media and how you can really create the right content that's going to convert to leads. So with social media, there's two pillars to social media. One pillar of social media is organic. So that's creating content and pushing content out to your followers and to people who don't follow you. Now, the reason organic content is so good, particularly in today's day and age, is because social media has really taken a turn as of late. If I was to give you a very, very quick history lesson on social media, let's rewind 10 years ago. 10 years ago was the rise of what we now know as influencers, okay? Now, I know influencer is a bit of a cheesy term because you generally associate influencers to, women in bikinis or fitness models or celebrities, right? And that's basically what social media was 10 years ago. Because they weren't really prioritizing ads back then, anyone who created content consistently could build a brand and could build an audience and a following really, really quickly and really, really easily. But one thing we've really started to notice, particularly with the influencers of old, is they're not really building followers as quickly as they once did. The reason being is because people don't really trust influencers anymore. Probably a little bit like real estate agents, right? They've been slinging too much stuff for their own benefit. And a lot of their content is really selfish and generated and designed to try and generate more likes. As I said, that was about 10 years ago. Up until about, that lasted probably 5 years. And 5 years ago onto probably up until about 12 months ago, what we saw the rise of was advertising. So let's rewind 5 or 6 years ago now. 5 or 6 years ago, particularly in the social media space, platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, their shareholders wanted to make more money. And they weren't really making that as much money as probably what they wanted to because the platforms were really prioritizing what we refer to as creators or influencers, right? So there was a bit of a change about 5 or 6 years ago where advertising really took over. And you would have noticed this even yourself as a consumer. You would have started seeing a lot more advertising in your newsfeed because advertisers were what was making the platforms money, right? They couldn't make money any other way except for running ads. The issue that became of that was ultimately about 12 or 18 months ago, a lot of these platforms started seeing people actually leaving the platforms, which was bad news for the shareholders, right? Because ultimately, when people are leaving the platform, it's less eyeballs on the platform and the company makes less money. It's as simple as that. So what was consciously done as a result of all of these people leaving the platform was very simply, they started prioritizing creators again. And this is where you've started seeing the rise of, the 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 follower influencers. The micro influencers is what we call them now today. Now, these micro influencers actually have a lot more pulling power in comparison to the people who have 1 million or 2 million followers a lot of the time. Why? Because it's a more trusted brand. So it's not really the goal anymore to get 50, 100, 200 million followers, whatever it might be. The goal is to build a really engaged audience or a really engaged follower base. Because once you do that, it almost acts like your database, your everyday CRM that you use on a daily basis. It acts as like a CRM. So the same way that you communicate with your CRM now can be the same way as you communicate with your followers. The more engaged they are, the more likely they will be to engage with you. So I want you to really start treating your followers the same way as you treat your database. Now, the reason we want to implement digital prospecting into your everyday workflow is because of the 5% rule. Now, most of you will be familiar with the 5% rule. For those who aren't, let me explain what that is. There's a rule of thumb in the real estate industry that generally speaking, 5% of your database will transact every 12 months. So if you have 100 people in your database, there will generally be 5 of those that will transact every 12 months. If you have 1,000 people in your database, 50 of those will transact. The same applies generally with suburbs, right? Give or take slightly, but generally speaking, if you look at Bondi for a suburb as an example, let's say, for example, there's, 10,000 households or properties in Bondi. If there's 10,000 households in Bondi, generally speaking, 5% will transact every 12 months. This is what we call turnover. Now, yes, I know for the critics, it may differentiate a little bit depending on what suburb you're in. It might be 4%, it might be 7%. But generally speaking, the average rule of thumb is about 5%. 5% of the area, 5% of your database. That's a good rule of thumb to work with. Go and quiz me if you want as well. Go and fact check me. Go and have a look at your suburbs, look at the amount of properties in those suburbs, check the transactions every 12 months. I can almost certainly tell you that it'd be pretty close to the 5%. Anyway, I digress. So let's dive into digital prospecting. First and foremost, let's talk about what the biggest mistake agents make with digital prospecting. There's generally 2 that I identify. The first one will probably be a surprise to you. It's not they don't create enough content or they don't create enough valuable content or they don't do this right or that. It's very rarely about the content. Now, I don't want to discourage you from creating more content. The more content you create, the more opportunities you're going to create. So if you're in the creating mindset, go and create as much content as you can. For those who aren't regular creating content, just try and stick to a schedule, once a week or twice a week if you can. If you have the ability to do it every day, then be my guest, and I strongly encourage you to do so. The 2 biggest mistakes I see agents make. Number 1 is they do not have a call to action. Let me rephrase that. Essentially, what happens when someone clicks on a piece of their content, whether it be a just listed post, a reel, a story, even just like a video or something that they put up. What happens is a lot of people will click through. People are stalkers, right? Generally, we average about sort of 10 to 20% of people who see your content will often click through to your profile to stalk you if your content is good. But when those people click through to your profile, they land on your profile and it's a bit of a ghost town. It's a dead zone. The consumer who's seen your content has no idea what to do next. Why? Because you're not directing them to do anything. So essentially, when they land on your platform, on your page, they're looking around going, okay, this is cool content or this is a cool property. It's a great video, whatever it might be, but there's no next step for them to take to turn them into a lead or into an opportunity. And that's the biggest mistake. That's number 1, the biggest mistake I see agents make. And it's about 99.8%. I've done the math. 99.8% of agents fail to have a clear call to action. Now, a call to action is basically a lead source, okay? The call to actions are basically the engine to lead generation, the oxygen to lead generation. If you don't have one, that's why you're not generating leads through social media. Now, it needs to be something valuable to your audience, or it needs to be a value exchange. So you need to give them something in exchange for their personal details. They get what they want and you get what you want, which of course is the lead. The issue, of course, when it comes to creating a strong call to action is what you're giving them needs to be frictionless. Okay, now what I mean by frictionless is there's a couple of things we have to understand here. Number 1, what do your consumers want from you as an agent? But the second thing, which is the most important, is what don't they want? And whether we like it or not as agents, believe me, I've worked in the industry for 12 years myself, owned my own agency. I was an agent for a long time. What we need to understand is what people don't want is they don't want to talk to us, right? They avoid us like the plague until they absolutely need us. Yet most agents keep trying to jam themselves down people's throats, and then they scratch their head as to why they're not generating leads, because they create too much friction. So what we need is a call to action. Number one, that's the biggest mistake I see people make. The second mistake I see people make is they don't treat their followers or their audience like their database. As I said previously, what they're generally trying to do is they're trying to push their own agenda. Okay. Now, if you call your database, yes, you have intent to identify an opportunity and ideally close an appointment for that opportunity. However, you're trying to deliver value. Whereas what I find with social media is everyone is trying to push their own agenda. Here's my record sale that I made. You should list with me because I made this record sale. Or I've got, 20% market share in the area. It's always about you. The more you make it about you, the less relatable you are. And the less relatable you are, the less people want to work with you. So you need to be the guide, not the hero. Make the homeowner the hero. You need to be the guide to guide them through that journey, whatever journey they're on, whether it's buying, selling, investing, or just researching. You need to guide them through that journey. So what I'm going to really summarize in this short course is how to use the right strategies, how to use the right information, and how to use the right automation to save you hours per week prospecting through manual sources. Let's dive straight into it. We'll see you in the next video.